Hey guys, we're going to take a look now at one last game with our Lifegain Matters deck, and this is going to be a great game because we're finally going to see use with these Seraph Sanctuaries. This is the opening hand, pretty awesome if you ask me. We have 3 lands. Unfortunately, only one of those is a plane, so the 2 others are going to be colorless mana. But we have a lot of great plays here. You'll see in a minute. The hand is set up really well with being able to hit drops on both turn 2, and especially on turn 3. And you'll see that in a second as I get this game going. And going to be on the play. First, going to throw out the Sanctuary. This is going to be minorly important. We're going to not necessarily have to do it in this order, but you're going to see the progression here in a minute. You kind of, if you look at this hand, you can pretty much guess where I'm going with this, but we're going to put down our Sanctuary on turn 1. You go at 1 life, and we're going to get this scroll into play as well. This is going to give us the ability to activate the Changeling. Get the 5 life activation because of the Changeling. Pardon, just woke up, so bear with me if my wordplay is a little not all there. So Plains is going to go down, then we're going to put the Lone Missionary into play. And this is kind of what I was talking about. You want to make sure you at least have the 1 white mana source that we do have available to us in play on turn 2, by turn 2. However you want to go about it, just make sure when it's turn 2 you have it so you can get this Lone Missionary into play and go up that 4 life. This is also going to set us up very well. We're going to finally have our white mana in play to get this Changeling. And, this is, like I said, it was a little bit tough because we do have 2 of our lands are colorless, but at the same time, we do have the 1 white source, and there's no double white colors in this deck. Unfortunately, it will keep you from being able to play multiple spells in one turn, having only 1 planes available to you, but at the same time, it's not going to hurt us so much. There's only 4 of the Sanctuaries in the deck, so, it's not going to be a frequent occurrence to have, yourself being stuck without white mana sources. Opponent plays an interesting card, Heart of the Warden. Kind of I don't know, it's basically a mana elf. It does have a draw ability to it, but it's not something you usually see. I'm assuming he had, at this point in time, some kind of answer, and you will see in a minute why he was using that. But we put down the second Sanctuary, and now we're going to get to play our Changeling, and you finally get a chance to see how this whole Angel mechanic, which was kind of the basis, trying to somewhat legitimize this deck, will come down. And here's what it is. The Angel it's a Changeling, but it actually counts as an Angel, so it is going to trigger both of our Sanctuaries. So we are going to gain 2 life off of that, which is fantastic. We also have another play later on. If my opponent does get a kill spell of some sort, if we have to block with the Changeling, we have the ability to Cloud Shift, which will blink the Changeling and trigger the Sanctuaries yet again. Attack through with the Lone Missionary. If he does decide to block, which he does, we do lose the Missionary. It's one of these things, it's a pretty good power and toughness in comparison to its casting cost. You look at it, it's a 2/1 for 1 and a white, and that's pretty great, but in the mid to late games, as the game progresses in general, you're going to find that 1 toughness is not very helpful to you in any way, so it's going to die at some point. It's mostly going to end up being a chump blocker for you, most likely. So I have no problem attacking through, and if he does want to trade this out, maybe it does give you an opportunity to kind of mess up whatever it is he's working on. Being this is a casual deck with the Heart of the Warden, I don't really know for certain what my opponent is. If he's playing a deck that is a pretty standard competitive deck, then I know these decks like the back of my hand. And it's all too familiar. I've probably played the games a million times. But at this point in time, don't really know what he's got going on, so if I can trade those creatures, I'm willing to do so at this point in time. So he puts down a Swamp, kind of interesting, playing 3-color deck, puts down a Sylvan Ranger, which is not surprising. When you play a 3-color deck, you do need stuff like the Ranger to, fix your mana base. Now, another interesting card, he puts down Paralyze. This is going to tap my Changeling here, and I can't untap it unless I pay 4. And you'll see in a second this triggers on my upkeep, and I can pay 4 if I want to untap the Changeling during my step. 4 is very, very, very heavy. There is another card whose name I'm going to blank on now because I'm trying to think of it, in blue that I've seen a couple times that is kind of a similar stasis effect where you can only pay 2 to untap it, and 2 is not so bad. 2 is something that you're most likely going to be paying every turn. It's not something that's so terrible to deal with that you're not going to untap that creature. 4, however, 4 is a much, much heavier cost, especially in a deck like this. If you're running Cloud Posts, then not such a big deal, but in a normal deck, I'm playing monocolored, so you're occasionally going to be a little bit lighter on the total land count, and this is definitely harder to deal with. I do get options here. I draw into a second cloud shift, and I have the ability to blink this, and in blinking this, it's going to untap it, it's going to lose the paralyze. But the first thing I want to do is activate this scroll. I want to use it while I have the changeling available to me. I want to get that life gain while I can. If he does draw some kind of kill spell like a Doomblade or something like that, I want to be able to, have the mana available to use the scroll while I have the angel. If the angel's gone, then the scroll is going to kind of just sit there, and you can, if you find yourself in a hard situation, use it to just draw a card, but that's not going to be getting the most out of this card that you can get. So luckily we draw into a third land. Also, even better, it is an untapped land. It is a white mana source. This gives us the ability now we can play the Rift Watcher. Cloud shifts are also great for being able to blink those and keep those alive beyond the time counters. Not going to play the Oblivion Ring there. Removing a 1/1 creature is not anything that I would do. It's again not a best use of your cards. So he plays another new card from AVR that was one I thought might see some play, but has not yet for the competitive scene. This is Driver of the Dead, and it's a 3/2 creature for 4, and when it dies, he can return target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. And now you can kind of see where he was going with this deck. Being able to use the Heart Warden and pay that 2 to draw a card. Now all of a sudden, with the Driver of the Dead, he's got kind of an interaction between the two, this synergy that will allow him to draw a card off the Heart Warden and then be able to bring it back through the driver. Unfortunately, it does require the Driver of the Dead to die in order to get that going again, but I'm assuming that he's got other kinds of reanimation options available to him for maybe getting drivers back. 4 costs is a little bit heavy, but the 3/2 is really nice, and the ability is really nice as well. I thought maybe a copy or 2 would find their way into mono black control, bringing you back something like an Augur. When you sacrifice those, it's kind of a similar interaction, and if you can find a way to kill the driver, and most of the time you can, there's a lot of aggro out there. I guess actually a lot of Storm, which doesn't help you, but against most aggro decks, you can at the very least use it as a chump blocker. To bring back the Heart, or bring back the Augur in the case of mono black control. So Paralyze goes on the stack again, and I still do not want to pay 4. Only sitting at 4 mana, and I want to be able to make other plays here. Whether it's Oblivion Ring on the driver, get the Missionary, and have the mana available for the Cloud Shifts. There's other things that I want to do with my mana. So gonna play the Oblivion Ring. I am gonna get rid of the driver. I didn't want him. There's a lot of options as far as being able to self-sacrifice to draw cards. The Morbid decks run that if you've come across those in the casual room. There are a couple of black spells that allow you to sacrifice your own creature for a benefit, whether it's life gain or card draw. And I really wanted to take that option away from him. That's a great outlet to sacrifice, and I didn't want him to have it, so I am going to use it while he is tapped out and doesn't really have an option here. This also leaves me 1 mana available for either of the Cloud Shifts if I need to. If you're going to blink the Changeling in this situation, you want to make sure you do it during your opponent's turn, or more importantly, maybe in response to him attacking with his Ranger. Blinking this on my turn is going to, untap it. It is going to get rid of the enchantment, but what it's really going to do is leave you in a situation with that creature with Summoning Sickness, and that's not ideal. It's not really going to hurt you in any way, but, wouldn't you rather, it's just, you get these marginally better plays where, if you don't do it the way I'm suggesting you do it, then it's not going to lose the game for you by any means. But at the same time, the whole thing with this game is you really want to be able to optimize your play and being able to get the most out of your cards. And if I'm able to chump block the Ranger, say, with that because of the blink, then that's getting a little bit more out of my spells than just getting rid of Paralyze. What that is doing is killing a creature in addition to getting rid of Paralyze. So, it's just little things like that. Opponent taps out, now playing Wickerbur Elder, which is frustrating, to say the least, because I know that he is going to be able to use that to get rid of the Oblivion Ring and bring back his Driver of the Dead. I decided at this point to blink the Changeling. I probably should have, I just suggested to you that I wait until a point in time where he attacks with the Ranger because it is tapped. I probably should have waited until end of turn to do this to get kind of, again, the most out of my cards. But you see, again, in doing that, it does trigger the Seraph Sanctuaries yet again. So that goes, Driver comes back into play. we are going to draw into Renewed Faith, and I will start by cycling that. I always like to start by drawing cards, whether that's a cycling spell or if it is the artifacts. However you have to draw spells, or I'm sorry, draw cards. Usually you want to do that first before playing lands, before putting out creatures. And this is, again, completely situational. There are going to be times where this is not the right thing to do first, but I like to do it first because it lets me change my options. Right now, before I cycle that, the only thing I have available to me to play is the Missionary and the Cloud Shift. 2 mana available, okay, fine, Missionary, no big deal. But you never know what you could draw. I could draw into a Journey to Nowhere. I obviously don't, but you do have the opportunity to do that, and maybe I want to use the Journey to remove the Elder, and that's more important to me than playing the Missionary. At this point in time, I'm at 39 life. It's already almost double what you start with in the game, so taking some damage is not a big deal. Gaining extra life, not a big deal, but being able to, save remove creatures. Let's say, for example, if he had a creature that had reach, if he had some way to block one of my flyers, then drawing that card first gives me an opportunity to get rid of his blocker and swing through for damage. It's just one of these things that I like to make sure I do. So because I drew into nothing else, I am going to just put my planes out and throw down the Missionary, go up 4 life. Again, sitting at 43, I'm going to sit back and easily take 7 damage off his 2 creatures. If he chooses to attack with the Ranger, then it's not a big deal either. I'll take that extra 1 instead of trading the Missionary. There's some things you want to keep in mind with this Missionary when he attacks. I am okay with blocking the Rager here, the Phyrexian Rager, with my Missionary, because it is killing a 2/2 creature. I am not okay with blocking the Ranger because it's only 1 damage. If I'm going to be basically chump blocking and throwing away a creature to 1 damage, then I'm in a really bad position in this game and I'm losing, which is not really the case. I also do not want to be blocking the Driver, because while the Driver is going to do 3 damage to me, blocking it is going to allow him to activate that ability, and while it's not going to change the game state at this point in time in this particular game, that might give him an opportunity to make a comeback. So my options for blocking are always going to be the Ranger, and if he doesn't attack with the Ranger, say for example he's attacking with just Driver of the Dead and Wickerboro Elder, then I'm going to just take the damage for now. I'm at 43 life, again, double what you start with, and more than enough life to sit back and take a couple of hits before you have to actually chump block. Chump blocking too early is not something you want to get into. There's a lot of options that you have available to you, and I think it's something that newer players always, forgive me, I probably say this a lot, but newer players always kind of need to learn at first that they can take some damage. I know personally, starting out 20 life, I wanted to stay as close to 20 as possible as the game progressed, so you end up playing way too defensive. And as you become a better player, you know where you can take some damage and where you cannot. So my opponent is at 13, deciding his attackers, and here again he is attacking with the Ranger and assuming, probably correctly, that I am not going to block with the Missionary. I really don't want to take that damage, but at the same time I'm not going to kill any of these 2 creatures. Blocking the Elder is just I'm not even going to consider it, not even an option. So he attacks through, I take the damage, no big deal. This is the last counter on my Rift Watcher, but I do have the Cloud Shift in hand. I am going to be able to blink that, keep it alive, and go up some life. And this gives me more options as far as blocking is concerned. Now if he does attack with the Ranger, I can block with the Rift Watcher. It's got Summoning Sickness anyways, so it's not going to be doing anything but sitting there. And blocking that Ranger is going to kill it off if he decides to attack with it. That is a trade that I'm willing to make because the Rift Watcher will not die. And if he decides to attack with the Ranger, same thing. I've got an option. I can use the Rift Watcher to block it instead of just throwing away my Missionary. Sorry about that. So drawn to a plains, I'm just going to keep it in hand, try and, I guess, bluff out a Cloud Shift. It really doesn't matter at this point in time. The deck doesn't really need more land in play than 6 at the most. The only things that you really want to have in play are the Sanctuaries and the Crossroads. Anything beyond that is just bonus. So I'm going to hold it in hand, just try and bluff a little bit. Not usually going to matter, but opponent is going to decide to attack correctly, probably, with the Driver, the Elder, and the Rager. Now again, the Rager is going to just simply be blocked by the Rift Watcher to kill it off. There's no need to do anything else. And I did actually decide at this point in time, you know what, I said I didn't want to kill the Driver, but I decided at this point in time that the only creature he has here is the Heart Warden. The best he's going to be able to do is draw a card off it. I decided at this point in time I was not so concerned with this game that I didn't want to do it. I figured it was better to throw this away now and let him have this 1/1 creature back. It was better to do this now than later on, where it's a situation where he's got more options in his graveyard to return something, say, more powerful, some kind of combo enabler, whatever it may be. So I decided this was a pretty good time to just do this now. I'm obviously going to be losing the Rift Watcher because I've already used 2 Cloud Shifts out of my deck. Odds are that by the time this guy is about to die for the second time, I'm not going to have another one to bounce him. And I'm really going to be relying on this 2/2 to really kill him off, and it's going to take a while. So I know I need to start clearing out some creatures, and again, this may be the most opportune time for me to be able to kill off the driver. So I assigned blockers, and my opponent disconnects. I don't know why, rage quits, whatever, and does not come back, but we'll just hit play here, and eventually he does disconnect, as you see, and times out. But, I thought this was a good example game, just for the fact that it kind of gives you some ideas on the blockers, and more importantly, you can see this was actually, the first one where it got really a decent interaction between the angel mechanics that was definitely kind of not an afterthought, but kind of a joke mechanic to this deck. The whole deck is an experiment, and if you don't understand what I'm talking about, go check out the article on puremtgo.com, or the deck tech available for this as well. But there you go, game number 3. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will catch you all later.